Hi! Now you hopefully have gone through some cast on videos and learned how to cast some yarn onto your needle. Next step is to actually knit that yarn, and there's two stitches that are the classic knitting stitches, knitting and purling. So you've all heard the term knit one, purl two. That means knit one row, purl row number two, knit, turn it around and knit again, and then purl. So knit row one, purl row two, knit row one, purl row two. Now when you do that, you make a fabric called stockinette stitch, and this is what that looks like. It is your classic knitting stitch. It has these nice little knitted loops on the front, and if you turn it over, that's the back side of the work. Now if you decide that you just don't feel like purling when you get started, you can actually just knit. You don't have to make a purl stitch. If you do that, you get a fabric that feels a little thicker, has these nice little kind of bumpy rows, and it looks the same on both sides because you're basically doing the same thing on both sides. So that's called garter stitch. So that's just an option for you. So let's grab this cast it on needle and let's get going here, and I'll show you how to actually start knitting now. Now I used a cable cast on to put these on. Doesn't really matter which one, they're all going to knit the same way. So when I start to knit, I've got my casted on stitches in my left hand, and I just have that tail kind of out of the way for me. And then I'm going to work with the needle in my right hand to start knitting these stitches. So to knit, the yarn's going to stay to the back of my work, and my needle is going to go in to the first loop here from front to back and under that needle and make kind of a cross there. You can see how that's gone through that needle. Then I'm going to take the working yarn and I'm going to wrap clockwise around the back needle, and then I'm just going to push that loop through to the front and drop the existing loop off of the first needle. So that's what it looks like loosely. Snug that up, and let's do that again. You're going to take your needle in your right hand, come into the loop from front to back and behind your first needle, wrap clockwise, push that loop through, and drop the loop off of the first needle. So you're, in essence, creating new loops on your second needle and transferring these off of a needle. And you're doing two things in each step. So make your loop and drop your loop. And then we do it again. We make a loop and then we drop one off. And we just keep going across the whole row. Now I just put 10 stitches on here so that I could quickly get through a row so I can turn the work and show you what to do going back. And if you've seen my video for the beginner cast on, I believe that's where I show you how I'm holding my hands in the needle, but I'll break it down for you. It was either that one or on the long tail, I'm not quite sure. But I am going to show you just how I'm holding my needles here, just so if you feel awkward you'll get it. I have my needle here in my left hand, and I'm just holding everything. My index finger on both hands is kind of just controlling the work. When I bring my loop through though, I use my left hand to grab that second needle. Now I can completely hold this in one hand. I've got my index and middle finger and my thumb holding this needle. The first needle is being held in my palm with these two fingers and being rested against my palm. And now this hand is free to grab that yarn, wrap, and bring it through. And then by keeping my index finger kind of concentrated on this work, this loop's not sliding off before I want it to. Whoops, we just split the yarn just slightly there. Just be careful of that. It happens. You just take your needle out slowly and fix it and keep on going. So I've just knitted this very first row. It's not much to look at just yet, but I will on the second row now. This is what I mean by turning the work. This yarn and this needle were in my right hand. I'm just going to transfer them to my left hand pick up my second needle and start again. So look, the yarn and work went back into my left hand to start again. Now, if I were to just keep going into the front of my work and wrapping and bringing that loop up, I would create that sample that I first showed you, that garter stitch sample, where it looks the same on both sides and has these bumpy ridges going across. But I'm gonna knit this and purl this, knit one, purl two, in a fashion that makes that stockinette stitch. That means that I just knit the last row, so now I purl this row. Purling is just sort of backwards knitting, almost. You're going to take your yarn, this tail, by the way, just hold that out of your way. You don't need it. So take your yarn and bring it forward. Take the needle, and this time, instead of going from front to back into the same side of the loop, you're going to go from back to front. Then you just grab the second needle with your hand, second hand or right hand free again, and you can wrap clockwise. You're always wrapping clockwise. It doesn't matter if you're knitting or purling. Push that loop that you just formed into the back of the work, and then drop the first loop off the needle. So we're going to do that again. My yarn stays in front of the work. I'm going to come in here from back to front, wrap clockwise. There's a loop that's been formed on this needle. I'm just going to make sure that doesn't slide off. I push it through to the back, and then I drop the first loop off the needle. Okay, that was nice and slow, so hopefully that was very visible to you. Now I would just purl across that row, doing exactly what I just did. And if you keep doing this same pattern, knit the first row, purl the second row, you will create stockinette stitch, which is your classic knitting look stitch. Now you can do a combination of knits and purls to do the ribbing stitch. So check out the video for creating a rib stitch, and you'll see how you can combine knits and purls on the same side. That's how you knit and how you purl. It's really not difficult. And get yourself good at those stitches and then come back for more. Learn how to cable, learn how to do increases and decreases and yarn overs, and soon you'll be making lace and making cables. And it's one stitch at a time. It always is. It's so fun and so easy, and you can create some really beautiful work. So keep practicing and stick with it.